So how did David, this man who's being relentlessly pursued, basically living in exile, how would he start laying the groundwork for his kingship? It wasn't with some huge army or anything obvious like that. It was, well, with astonishing foresight, deep spiritual intention, and, believe it or not, a single ancient sword.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. We're continuing our journey, chapter by chapter, through the book of Samuel in our series, The Vindication of the King.
Yeah.
And this chapter, 1 Samuel 21, is one I know we've both been really looking forward to unpacking.
Oh, absolutely. Every time we dive into Ariel Lewis's commentary, it feels like it opens up these narratives in a completely new way. And this one, our 20th deep dive, we're calling David and the Sword of Kingship, focusing on 1 Samuel 21. It's just packed with those aha moments. Really is.
It really is something special. And just to remind you, our listeners, this incredible commentary we're exploring comes from Ariel Lewis. It's deeply inspired by the teachings of his late father, Rabbi David Lewis, and produced alongside his own son, Yehuda Lewis. And while it had this, unique artistic feel, it's absolutely grounded, fully rooted in the teachings of the sages of Israel, the ancient wisdom keepers.
Exactly. So our mission today is really to uncover this quiet, almost stealthy unfolding of David's plan, especially concerning the Philistines. This isn't about brute force, not yet anyway. Chapter 21 marks a huge turning point. We see David starting to show this profound, deliberate strategy. It's so different from Saul, who is often just reacting. David's thinking ahead, mixing spiritual goals with some seriously sharp political thinking.
That's the key difference, isn't it? David isn't just trying to survive day to day out there. He's actively shaping his future, planting seeds, even when he seems most vulnerable. Last time, we saw that incredibly moving, almost heartbreaking farewell between David and Jonathan. And that moment really kind of freed David up, didn't it? To go into exile alone, carrying this prophetic weight and start executing this much larger, intricate strategy.
Right. And as we get into the commentary itself, you'll notice a bit of a shift. We love the back and forth, but the insights from Ariel Lewis are so, well, profound. They really demand a sense of awe, I think. It makes this whole Vindication of the King series feel like uncovering hidden layers of David we just never considered before.
It truly does. Okay, so let's start. 1 Samuel 21 opens with David showing up at Nob, and he's alone. Now think about that. A top commander suddenly traveling solo, maybe even in disguise. And Ahimelech, the priest there, he trembles. He immediately senses something's wrong.
That trembling says so much, doesn't it? The commentary really picks up on that. It hints at this hidden tension, the unspoken reality, that things are seriously off. Commanders like David just didn't travel alone. It shows David starting down this hidden path, away from the public gaze. But he's sharp, so quick on his feet. He comes up with the story right away. Tells Ahimelech, "The king hath commanded me a business, a secret mission, no one's supposed to know." And he adds that his young men are waiting nearby.
Right, the cover story. And then he asks for bread, specifically 5 loaves or whatever Ahimelech has. But Ahimelech is stuck. The only bread available is the holy bread, the showbread, the special loaves placed before God in the tabernacle each week. It wasn't everyday food. So he asked David, basically, are your men ritually pure? Have the young men kept themselves from women? That purity was required to eat this sacred bread, usually only for priests.
And David's answer here is just, wow, masterful. He insists they have kept themselves pure for about 3 days. He argues that their vessels, meaning themselves, their gear, were holy even on a normal trip. So he says, how much more then today should they be considered holy enough for this bread, given the king's urgent secret business? It's such a clever way to justify needing the bread now, linking his mission to a sacred purpose. It's brilliant, really.
It absolutely is. So Ahimelech gives them the holy bread, but and this is where the plot thickens and it gets quite chilling. There's someone else there, an observer, Doeg the Edomite. He's described as being detained before the Lord at Nob, maybe for some ritual, maybe fulfilling a vow. The point is he's there, and he's one of Saul's chief servants, loyal to Saul.
Ah, Doeg, yes. And this is where Ariel Lewis's commentary just drops a bombshell, really. It shines a completely new light on this. The commentary reveals that David, at this point, was actually quite naive about Doeg, shockingly so. He still saw Doeg as a kind of colleague from the Society of the Prophets. He thought they shared some common ground, some spiritual connection.
Exactly. And here's the really fascinating part, the insight from Ariel Lewis. Doeg wasn't acting out of friendship at all. He had already told David some kind of classified information about the sacred sword, the very sword David's about to ask for. David probably thought, oh, he's helping me out. But Lewis argues Doeg was actually sowing political debt. He was feeding David info, hoping that if David did become king down the line, David would owe him one. reward him.
It just highlights David's vulnerability at this stage, doesn't it? How easily he could be taken in by hidden motives, even from people he sort of recognized spiritually. A tough lesson.
That completely changes how you see David's next move, makes it feel even more significant, almost guided. Because right after this, he asks Ahimelech for a weapon. Is there peradventure here under thy hand spear or sword? He uses the excuse again, the king's business required haste, so he didn't bring his own. He needs protection, clearly. But you sense something else is going on now. And Ahimelech's reply is just stunning. He says, the sword of Goliath the Philistine, whom thou slewest in the vale of Elah, behold, it is here wrapped in a cloth behind the ephod. The ephod, remember, was that special garment the high priest wore, a place where secret items were often kept.
Okay, Rachel, this is where it gets really interesting, doesn't it? The significance, as Ariel Lewis points out, is mind-blowing. He says this was literally the last place the Philistines would ever think to search for Goliath's sword. Why? Because they knew the tabernacle was sacred ground where weapons were forbidden. It was hidden right there, in plain sight, in the holiest, most unlikely spot, sanctified, set apart.
Right, which makes you wonder, why that sword? Why now? The commentary suggests that maybe David was starting to get that uneasy feeling about Doeg, that sixth sense kicking in, like a quick silent prayer rising in his heart as he suddenly grasps the danger, the stakes. He didn't just need a weapon, he needed this weapon, a symbol.
And his response confirms it instantly. There is none like that. Give it me. It's like, yes, that's the one I came for. He didn't just stumble upon it. The commentary makes it clear he was there for that specific sword. It shows David's already understanding the power of symbols, not just, physical strength.
And what's incredible is how quickly he uses this symbol. It's not just for defense. It becomes a strategic piece. Because right after this, he flees. But not just randomly running from Saul. He makes a very deliberate choice. He goes to Achish, the king of Gath, Goliath's own hometown.
Okay, and this is where Ariel Lewis's insight completely flips the script on why David goes to Gath. Usually you might think, okay, he's desperate, seeking refuge anywhere. But Lewis offers a much more complex reading. He suggests Achish, as one of the senior Philistine kings, actually aspired to inherit Goliath's symbolic leadership role. Goliath was their fallen hero, right? So David's plan, according to this commentary, was incredibly bold, almost diplomatic. He was going to offer him the sacred sword, the emblem of Philistine kingship.
Think about the strategic implications of that. It's audacious. David knew the Philistines were often divided, those 5 city-states. If they united under someone strong like Achish, Israel would face one massive enemy. But if they stayed fractured, it meant constant draining skirmishes. So the sword in David's hands wasn't just a weapon, it was, as Lewis puts it, bait and diplomacy. A gamble, really, to potentially influence Philistine politics, maybe create infighting or consolidate power in a way that might strangely benefit Israel later. It's strategic chess, not just running away.
It's just, yeah, incredible foresight for someone in his position, thinking so many moves ahead while on the run. But like even the best plans, things go wrong. Achish's own servants recognize David immediately. They say, is not this David the king of the land? Did they not sing? Saul hath slain his thousands and David his 10,000s? Suddenly he's exposed. He's the guy who killed their champion, Goliath, the enemy number 1. Extreme danger.
Exactly. The text says David laid up these words in his heart and became sore afraid of Achish. But the commentary adds another layer to why he was so afraid now. Achish has the sword, right? The symbol David just basically handed him. Suddenly, Achish doesn't need David anymore. David gave him the ultimate political symbol. Now David himself, the slayer of Goliath, is disposable. A liability, even. It shows the razor's edge David was walking, even with his clever diplomacy.
So he's trapped. He's given away his leverage, the sword, and now everyone knows who he is. What does he do? This is where David's genius really kicks in again. The commentary suggests he had actually foreseen this possibility, this danger. He had an escape plan ready. His move is brilliant, almost performance art. He changed his demeanor before them and feigned himself mad in their hands, and scrabbled on the doors of the gate and let his spittle fall down upon his beard. He acts completely insane.
This was his exit strategy, as the commentary calls it. So clever. By acting mad, he lets Achish dismiss him. He's not a threat anymore, just some poor lunatic. It saves Achish a huge embarrassment. Imagine Achish trying to explain to his court why he was dealing with Israel's greatest hero, or why he should imprison this madman. Feigning madness lets Achish just get rid of him without losing face. It's using perceived weakness as strength.
And Achish totally falls for it, or at least plays along. His reaction is perfect. Lo, when you see a man that is mad, wherefore do you bring him to me? Do I lack madmen? Shall this fellow come into my house? Just pure contempt. It allows David to just walk away, completely dismissed as homeless.
And the real triumph here, the insight from Ariel Lewis, is that David gets away not by brute strength, but by foresight, restraint, and the skillful weaving of truth and illusion. And what's the first thing David does after this narrow escape? He praised the Lord. This whole sequence, Nob, the sword, Gath, the madness, it's an incredible display of David's emerging kingship. Not just warrior skill, but strategy, adaptability, and this deep reliance on divine guidance.
Wow. Okay. That was another truly deep dive, wasn't it? Episode 02, David and the Sword of Kingship. It just keeps happening. Ariel Lewis's commentary fundamentally reshapes how you see David's journey to the throne. It uncovers this intricate, spiritually charged strategy woven beneath the surface. It's so much more than just battles and psalms.
Absolutely. The big takeaway, I think, and what the commentary illuminates so well, is David's incredible foresight and his diplomatic skill, his active engagement with the world. He wasn't just waiting for God to fix things or just relying on his fighting ability. He was a strategic player, anticipating moves, adapting constantly. Really quite remarkable.
So if this deep dive got you thinking, if it sparked something for you, we'd love it if you'd subscribe to the channel. Give this deep dive a like, and please leave us a comment or a question below. We genuinely enjoy hearing your perspectives.
Yes, please do. And if you're new here and want the whole story, we really encourage you to check out the full Vindication of the King series right from Chapter 1. Each chapter works on its own, sure, but following the entire narrative arc really adds so much depth.
It's quite amazing, isn't it, that this ancient text, especially seen through this lens of Ariel Lewis's commentary, drawing on centuries of wisdom from the sages, it still offers such potent, almost prophetic guidance for navigating our own complex times today.
It really does. Just as David used wisdom, foresight, and that incredible adaptability to navigate a world full of danger and twists, we also need that clarity, that strategic thinking, and maybe that inner resourcefulness in our lives. It's a timeless lesson, really. Sometimes the best solutions aren't the most obvious or forceful ones, but come from wisdom and nuanced action.
That's a powerful thought to end on. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive.
We hope you'll join us next time as we continue our journey through Samuel in the Vindication of the King. Until then.